2009 remind you of 1996 in some fashion?
So I think that 1996 and 2009 are more different than they were similar. Back in 1996 there was a lot of growth, but I think everyone would have to say that a lot of that growth was speculative and perhaps not founded in reality. And so as a result we had a bubble and a fundamental transition in the industry. A lot of people are asking the question now, which is, have we basically reached a point that we have constraints and there's going to be rapid growth? And I think at this point what we have reasoned growth, and the growth is really based on real customer demands that are taking place.
There's a lot of talk about mobile internet pushing up growth. There's a lot of talk about video. What is driving the growth really at the backhaul level?
Oh, that's a great question, and it really is behaviors across the board. We see the growth originating from traffic in our business sector. We see it originating in the consumer sector. Qwest just made an announcement about providing broadband capabilities at cell sites so that wireless providers similarly can provide the growth for capabilities that they want to provide to their own customers. And it's totally across the board. But here's the thing that we're focused on. As you look at that growth, you have to make sure that the growth remains affordable. And so if you look at our broadband subs, we see the consumption of data going up over 40% annually. Now, if I go to a typical consumer and I say, would you be willing to pay 40% more every year on your broadband bill? The answer is no. The expectation is that the revenue will be flat, and therefore it's the mission of my team and many teams like my own team to say, how can we bring them the cost per bit down at that rate so that applications that people want continue to be more affordable even though the consumption of bandwidth is going up exponentially.
Aren't you frustrated that there is not enough new innovation happening in the industry? I think big companies are in trouble. We know what's going on at Nortel. Lucent, Alcatel is having its own challenges, and you have VCs have stopped funding optical startups and networking startups. I mean, the world needs more innovation in the network level, and all we see is people talking about investing in some tiny web startup. I mean, what's going on here?
So let me agree on some points you made there, but disagree with a few others. So I would say that right now we are being fairly successful in industry in terms of driving down the per bit cost rates at the levels that I was talking about, 40% year over year. Now, if you look at that as an IP problem and an optical problem, because in the long haul IP is riding on optical, the IP sector has been fairly successful. I think routers are still a fairly young technology, and a lot of low-hanging fruit is being picked off before we run into more Moore's Law types of limitations. In the optical domain, this move to 100 gig, I think, is sort of a one-time win that we're going to have. The concern I have in terms of the innovation that you talked about is that my opinion is there is not enough innovation taking place fundamentally in optical components over the last few years, and therefore we could have issues in the future so that innovation not take place, because the optical networks are going to have to scale at exactly the same rate.
Right. Now you as a company own a very big network. Both it's a long haul network, you own a metro network, a lot of metro assets, and you own last mile assets as well. What kind of bandwidth growth are you experiencing on all three levels?
Okay. Well, first of all, we see growth that's pretty consistent across all of those levels. I think your point is there a degree of traffic that maybe is constrained within a metro that you don't see in the long haul, and we really don't see that effect. I mean, the geography of the internet in this country is still that peering between providers is occurring at 5, 6, 7 or so nationwide points, and tremendous traffic flows across those. I mean, we grow those connections with our peers very, very rapidly. Some interesting trends are taking place, though. The other day I was looking at figures in terms of this 40-ish% number that I gave you in terms of total consumption of bandwidth on a monthly basis and how that is growing. So that's our compounded annual growth rate. But that's very different than the peak rate that we would grow our internet backbone, which in fact is growing faster. And what it tells you is that more people are consuming data at certain times during the day versus what they would download as a whole. So as an example, if you believe that video is one of the things that really is driving broadband consumption to increase, people are also watching video during very specific periods. It's like the old problem of when people make phone calls from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Really? So this is like, I guess people are watching Hulu in bed?
I'm not sure if they're watching Hulu in bed.
What time is the video spike?
Well, certainly we see video spikes in the consumer space in the evening period, sort of the 6 to 8 p.m.
Wow.
time.
So the computer is the new prime time, I guess.
Well, I'm not saying that necessarily is a computer. I mean, if you look at some of the models that are out there, people are also starting to solve home networking problems that they have, and it's something that Qwest is interested in helping folks. How do you get a broadband connection, not just to your computer, but get it to the entertainment technology that you have in your house, right? That's a barrier you have to overcome. It's rather difficult to sit in front of a computer for multiple hours and enjoy a video event, right? That's referred to as leaning back versus leaning forward. The computer is great for short clips. It's not so great if you want a rich media experience for multiple hours.
It's like, how do you define a telco/communications company of the future?
Well, certainly I can tell you that within Qwest we are doing a lot of thinking and have already fundamentally changed how it is that we look at our business. If you look at broadband, I think I agree that in the first measure we tend to look at broadband as a certain speed that you're going to have access to. But I think what you're going to find is that the distinction between those in the content business and those in the transport business is going to start to close, is going to come together. We're going to become a lot more content aware and are going to be participating in what I call the value of content. First of all, that's with an eye towards the consumer and creating a better experience. But I think also it's with an eye towards saying that this experience is going to be one that's affordable. If you go back to this issue of bandwidth growth and a desire that, okay, I do not want my base broadband bill to increase substantially in cost, in order to make those investments, you're going to have to basically participate in other revenue streams.
Right, but that's the analogy I use, the Intel analogy. It doesn't matter, they will never be part of the web services, food chain. They will never make money like Google makes money on the advertising. They will not make money like Microsoft makes money. But and that's okay. They make a lot of money doing just what they do. I mean, as a carrier, do you think you also have to basically adopt that hands-off? Okay, that's all we sell. We sell you a lot of bandwidth. You want you want a Xeon and you got to pay $300, and you want 40 megabits and you got to pay $100. So basically, instead of offering services on top of these things, you just offer straight up these packages. Do you think that actually is where the telecom industry is headed?
Well, I don't want to comment on Intel's business model. What I would say from a Qwest perspective is our belief that it is not just a commodity pipe in various sizes that we're going to be providing to our customers. It's an experience. When the day is done, does a customer care what the speed is? Does a customer care about other aspects of the broadband connection? What they want is they want to know that the experience is a best-in-class experience.
Let's talk about the overall web. What do you think it looks like when you have 50 megabits to your house, right? What is the kind of web services do you think that will emerge when we have such high bandwidth? Like we had, when we had 3 to 4 megabits, we got YouTube and Skype and things like that. And now at 10 we got Hulu, right? Much better quality of video. 50, oh, that's a big bump. So we got to do something there.
Right. So I think there are a couple of points that I would make first about much higher speeds. The first thing is that you have to ensure that when you design a network and say that you're going to provide, in Qwest case, 40 megabits per second to the home, you want to make sure that the backhaul of the network is really designed so that everyone is able to get that type of experience. So that implies differences in the architectures in terms of backhaul. Now, I don't want to comment on other architectures, but I'm proud to say that when Qwest developed fiber to the node, we made sure that the experience was one for what I call the new generation of the internet. We drive fiber to the node, that's a gigabit experience. Let's say you have 300 homes and you have a third of the market. You want to make sure that those types of speeds, in this case 10 megabits per second, dedicated simultaneous to every customer, is something that's available, because that bandwidth has to be usable. In terms of the behavior that it drives, what it, I think, drives is a couple things. First of all, it's the issue of video and higher quality video. I mean, nothing trumps video in terms of the continuous amount of data that is consumed hour after hour. And the assumption is that you will be running multiples of those streams to your house, because homes tend to have more than one television. So that's one obvious behavior that changes, is that the quality of the experience becomes one that is far higher quality. I mentioned earlier the issue of the interactivity upstream and the ability to have that video interaction between individuals. Earlier in the discussion we were talking about multi-point communication, the idea that multiple people can participate in that, and it's a rich experience in both directions. I'm just not consuming data. The third thing that happens is as speeds go up, obviously the ability for offline storage and the inherent benefits of things like security around that becomes more realistic as well. If I spend a day shooting with my digital camera, I'm a digital photographer, now I have some very high capacity flash cards and I want to put those images elsewhere. I mean, just imagine if you have a hard drive crash, or heaven forbid, a fire in the home, how are you going to protect that content that you have? That experience also has to be easy, and I think broadband is going to play in there as well.